From the time I was very young, I was an entrepreneur. I was the only one in Utah who could grow a garden with zucchini in the backyard and go sell it to the next door neighbors who were growing zucchini in their own garden. I had a dog bathing business. I earned money for a mission by selling microwave cookware and fire extinguishers that didn't have any water in them. They were all this kind of smoke spray stuff. I sold berries. I did everything under the sun. And the great thing about being an entrepreneur is I got to work for myself. I got to put my own money in the bank. And I was in charge of how I wanted to spend that money. I didn't have to work for anybody else. I could work my own hours. I learned from the time I was 8 years old the importance of having a big idea and running with it. My mom told me, she had 5 girls, and she goes, if anybody's going to start their business one day, it's going to be you. I want right now to implant in your mind that you can be anything you want to be. You can do anything you want to do. My story, I want you guys to know, just 20-something years ago, I was you. And my idea 20 years later did turn into something that was a good idea, and I'm glad I acted on it. But first of all, though, I want to play something for you. I saw this about a year ago. Do you want me to?
Do you want to do it? It's this
Okay.
Village.
Oh, okay. Look at me. I have more power than I thought I did. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but just follow along with this. It's an incredible little video. If you have a full fridge, clothes on your back, a roof over your head, and a place to sleep, there you go. Raise your hand. All right. Maybe not the full fridge, huh? Love that. Look what he's catching in jars. It's awesome. Probably that. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Sorry. How do I start this then? Just slideshow from beginning like that? Okay. Got it. All right. How many of you have seen that before? Just only a couple of people. I love that slideshow because it tells us that America is an amazing place to start a business to live in. I want you guys to consider some of these facts about our country. Did you know that the USA has only 4% of the world's population, and yet 26% of all goods produced in the world are made in the USA? Did you guys know that? 26% are made in the USA. And that number appears again, 26% of all the world's trading in goods, services, and products takes place within USA. Did you know that the world's GDP is approximately 54 trillion per year? Or put another way, over 25%. That's the next largest, the next largest is either Japan or China, and it's only a third the size. The U.S. economy is larger than the next four in the rankings: China, Japan, Germany, and UK added together. Despite the dominant size of the U.S. economy, the country is underpopulated, even with a population in excess of 360 million. The world average is 49 people per square kilometer, and the U.S. only has 31. Japan has 338. USA has 5 times per head more agriculture than Asia, 2 times more than Europe, 3 times the global average. And any long-term successful economy needs 3 things: land, labor, and capital. And guess what? The U.S. has it. It's a great place to work, to live, to start a business. Now, before I tell you about my little story, I just have to tell you about one of my friend's success stories, because this, to me, has to do with everything that I'm going to talk about today. It's about the power of your thoughts. Before I do that, everybody has a paper underneath their chair. You didn't know that, but you do. Is there a way to push this in?
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm just feel like
Here, just put this right.
there we go. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to, perfect. Okay, did everybody get that? What is that paper? Can anybody tell me, what does this paper represent? Does anybody know the story behind the sticky note? Now hang on to it, because you guys are going to have to do something with it. Anybody know the story behind the sticky note? You guys, a little bit. It's a pretty cool story, isn't it? Okay, I just want to tell you, you look at this paper, look at the back of that adhesive while I tell you the story. In 1968, there was a chemist named Dr. Spencer Silva, and he developed a low-tack adhesive for 3M. He developed it, and everybody said, that's a stupid product. We're never going to do anything with it. And they just took it and put it in the closet, basically shelved it, said, we don't know what to do with it. 5 years later, there was a coworker who was singing in a choir, and he was having a hard time keeping bookmarks in his music. And so he he went and remembered that low tack adhesive from his coworker, and he spread it on the top of his bookmark so that he could pull it in and out, knowing where he was going to sing the music. He used it, and what happened? Thus, the sticky note was born. He went back and he said, this is the coolest thing, this is the coolest invention, we have got to market it. And honestly, this is probably one of the biggest products in America today and the world. It's gone worldwide, and they're glad they took it off the shelves. This tells you the power of what you think of. The sticky note, to me, represents a little piece of paper with a little bit of stick on the back, but it almost got forgotten. What is your idea? Now, by the time this class gets over, you guys, I want you to write on that little sticky note what your big idea is. I'm going to tell you about my big idea, but I want you guys to write down a big idea. I want you to stick it somewhere, maybe on your notes, maybe in your journal tonight, maybe on your fridge, on your bathroom mirror. I don't care where it is, to tell you that's my big idea. Whether it ever comes to fruition or not doesn't matter. It's that you have an idea and that you're willing to do what it takes to go for that idea or another idea, and use sticky notes along the way. And remember the story I told you about 3M and how they almost missed out on this amazing, miraculous product. Okay, this is a book that right now is a bestseller in Costco. And really quickly, this is Valerie Ackley, written by Valerie Ackley. She was a roommate of mine here at BYU. And she thought of the idea, she wanted her children, she has 5 kids, to realize the power of their thoughts. So she wrote this book called What Are You Thinking? Well, guess what? She wrote it over 2 years ago, and she went and took it to a children's national bookseller, and they were like, that's never going to work. You're just a little Utah mom, in Lehi, Utah. We need more national names. We need, you need to have written other books. You're never going to make it. You know what? Valerie went, that's not true. I am going to make it. And you know what she did? 6 months ago, she went from Costco to Costco to Costco here in Utah and said, I will come to book signings. I will prove to you that this is going to be your best-selling book. And guess what? In Costco, particularly in the American Fort Costco, by where I live, this has been their top book seller. And it's because Valerie broke the chains, broke the normal tradition of where you need to go for a children's book, and she went head to head with managers in each Costco and was able to just sell just phenomenal sales with this book. I want to read it to you really quickly because I love the story of this book, and it's really quick, really fast. Did you ever really want something? You can see here the little boy really wants a dog. And you finally got it. Did you know it wasn't just luck? It was the power of your thoughts. You have a supermind. Now, I love this right here because it talks about all the superminds. It talks about the brothers discovered the right stuff. There's a new name called baseball. Graham's idea rings a bell. Talks about all the people, even the toilet paper. There's an outhouse with a roll of toilet paper. Ben's shocking revelation. Think how the sun warms the air. A magnifying glass can focus the sun's energy to have great power. And the ants are all saying, run for your lives. When your thoughts are focused, they also have power. They pull you towards all you need to achieve anything you set your mind to. Just as a bug is drawn to light, people, ideas, and things will be drawing to you because of your focused thoughts. So you can see what he's thinking, but watch out, it isn't just happy thoughts that have power. So what are you thinking? Are you thinking yucky thoughts right now? I hate school, I hate breakfast, I hate mornings. You could end up with all sorts of yucky problems. But you can change your thoughts. Here she's thinking, I love life. You decide what you are going to focus on. What if bad comes anyway? Just listen to Granny in her rose-colored glasses. She knows, so she's saying, with a little poem, she knows good can come from any situation and you can choose to see the good. Granny knows that just as you choose what you listen to on the radio, you can choose how you want to feel. And always tune your thoughts to things that make you glad. Smile. Picture how you want your life to be. No more yucky thoughts. Use your supermind to bring happiness into your life. Imagine the possibilities. Now you know the power of your thoughts. What are you thinking? While you're writing on that sticky note, I want to know, what are you thinking? I can promise you guys, if you believe you can do it, if you believe you can follow your dreams, you can make it work. You're going to have a lot of people telling you you can't. You listen to yourself, and that is the message I want to give you all today about my story. So let me start my little PowerPoint here. Exit that. Sorry, I'm a Mac user, so I don't know what this is, but
Should have had it set up. Let's see.
there we go. And then just started on the, there we go, thank you. I knew you'd know how to do that, Allison, thank you. Allison, I got it right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I lost my little clicker. The clicker is up here, thank you. All right. So here's my family. As Allison said, I have 5 children. And as I was going to BYU here, I just want to tell you where I got my big idea. Going to BYU, and I served a mission in Scotland. And while I was in Scotland, I had a mission president who was the editor of a newspaper in Twila, Utah. And he would always talk about the publishing process, and I got really interested in publishing and writing, in PR, in communications, and advertising. I just loved that whole idea. But I got home from my mission and immediately went into communications. Now, how many of you guys know what your major is right now? How many don't? I guess I should say that. There's a couple of you. If you are a freshman or a sophomore, really, I don't think it's that big a deal. And I think take your core classes, take some time to really get to where you want to be and what you want to major in. After that, then go for it. But I don't think do you guys agree with me needing to declare a major? I think a lot of people feel that pressure. I'm a freshman. I've got to know exactly what I do. There's tons of core classes that you've got to do. So I decided I wanted to go into communications. Now, here is some advice. How many of you have to do an internship? Okay, I had to do an internship, and I was a poor BYU student, and I got 2 options for internships. One was in Idaho Falls, Idaho. The other one was in Washington, D.C. The Washington, D.C. one was going to be a great, amazing experience, but it didn't pay anything. The one in Idaho was going to pay about, I think at the time, minimum wage, $5 an hour, and wasn't as good of experience, though. which one should I take? I was a poor student. I decided to go for the experience. And if that's one thing you guys can remember with your internship, go for the experience. Do not worry whether it's paid or not. With those first jobs that you get, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but don't worry about the money. Worry about the experience. I went to Washington, D.C., and I worked for a PR agency, and that is what gave me the experience to think of my big idea and put it on my sticky note and make it work for me. Upon graduation, I got a job at WordPerfect. Do you guys remember the days did you work at WordPerfect?
Yes, best place I ever worked.
Did I work, where did you work at WordPerfect?
Customer service,
Okay, me too. I was in customer support. What department?
features, printing,
Me too. Come here. Do we know each other?
possibly.
I worked in features at WordPerfect too. That's pretty
Best
cool.
place ever.
It really was, wasn't it? What made it good?
It's the program.
The program,
I won't ever use Word.
the way they treated their employees, the bonuses. They were a great company. I think we did work together, actually. I got a job immediately at WordPerfect, okay? Now, let me tell you guys, WordPerfect, I just had graduated, and my first job was in features at customer support. I didn't know a lot about the software, but it was the equivalent at that time to Microsoft, okay? It was the big happening company. And like she said, it's still an amazing word processor. Okay, so I got a job, and guess how much my first job was a month? $900 a month. Now, how many of you would go through BYU and be disappointed with a $900 a month job? I can see the back saying yes. I think that, especially today, is probably pretty low. But I decided this is a great company to work for. I am going to learn everything about WordPerfect and go where I want to go. And so I did that, and guess what? 9 months later, I got a job at WordPerfect magazine as their editor. And I'll show you this, there's WordPerfect magazine right there. They started a brand new magazine, and because I knew everything there was to know about WordPerfect, I got a job as the editor of this amazing magazine. Now, that's my other little tip. Don't worry about your first job being what your dad makes. Honestly, it doesn't. I think too often we want what our parents have or what we see other people getting. Experience is worth more than salary, I promise you, in those beginning stages. With an internship, with the first job. You won't be happy if you go for the money and don't get a job that you really love. Experience will take you where you want to go. Okay, so to flip back a little bit, by the way, this is my daughter, Brecken, and she's an entrepreneur like I am. She sets up, in the summers, a snack shack in the backyard, and my son lifeguards at our pool, and they charge all the neighborhood kids to pay $5 and come swim for 2 hours, and she sets up a snack shack. So I'm trying to instill that in my own kids, the importance of entrepreneurship. So, okay, during this time that I was at WordPerfect magazine, I was there for over 7 years as the editor of this magazine, and these are older scrapbook pages, but I had 2 kids at the time, and I loved scrapbooking. I was obsessed with it. I was passionate about it. I would stay up into the wee hours of the night scrapbooking my children's lives and what was going on. I loved it. And I would take them to all my little WordPerfect friends the next day, and they would all ooh and ah over them at the magazine. And I absolutely was obsessed with it. Now, let me remind you really quick, though, my job was the editor of a computer magazine, a word processing magazine. I learned everything I could there about graphic design, about publishing, all about publishing. Let's see, about the circulation and the editing, everything I could there. But I found that my passion was scrapbooking. I just have to tell you the story behind this. This is a memory. If I hadn't have scrapbooked it would be forgotten. This is my boy who's 18 now. And one night he came to dinner, and we were eating something kind of hard, and he's like, I can't bite on that because my tooth is about ready to fall off and out. And he was only, I think he was 4 or 5, and we looked at it, and it was dangling by a thread, and we said, how is your tooth about ready to fall out? And he said, this is his cousin Mallory. He said, Mallory and I were playing dentist today, and she got that big pair of red pliers, do you see them? And wiggled and wiggled and wiggled until it was just hanging by a thread. True story. And we said, you don't ever play dentist. And he didn't know that. So that's how he lost his first tooth, and he got $7 because we felt so sorry about how he lost his first tooth. The same kid, I just have to tell you this is the power of scrapbooking. This kid right here kept saying he was getting bad grades in first grade because he needed glasses. We took him to the eye doctor, and the eye doctor said he doesn't need glasses. And again, 6 months later, he was not getting good grades. He couldn't see the board, and we went back, and the doctor tested him again, and he finally excused him to the other room, and he said, you know what? He goes, he doesn't need glasses, but he thinks he needs glasses. So here's a prescription with fake glass in it. Go out, pick a pair, let him get it. I can promise you it will cure the problem. Sure enough, we went out, and the ones on the bottom right are the ones he ended up getting. He wore those faithfully for a year, solved all bad grades. They had fake glass in them, and it was just like a year ago that I told him the truth. Isn't that sad? So at 17, I've kept these glasses, and I went out and I said, Colin, look at these glasses. They don't have any strength in them. They were fake. And I didn't have the heart to tell him before then, and he was sad, but no, but I mean, true story. And so that was just between my husband and the doctor and Colin, and he never knew that, and he was thrilled. It cleared. And we asked him, why do you want to wear glasses? And he said because his cousin had them, so he felt like he needed them. So, you know, I've been doing this scrapbooking for like 20 years now, and I have all my kids' hardships and their triumphs. I have some really, really exciting news. In exactly 23 hours, no, 20, I'm sorry. So wait a minute. 6 days, 23 hours, and 54 minutes. I'm going to cry. But this kid comes home from a mission next Wednesday. I can't wait. Okay. It's been a long 2 years for Mom, but it's been an amazing experience for him. And it's been really fun as a missionary and as a mom to document that along the way. So next Wednesday, wait, this is Tuesday, never mind. She's getting teary-eyed thinking of her kids going. Gosh, it's hard. I'm sorry, never mind. It's 24 hours, it's next Wednesday. I'm jumping a day ahead. I'm so excited. So anyway, but that is the power of scrapbooking. I got first steps of my kids. So I was at night, while I was the editor of this computer magazine and going off to computer workshops and computer shows all over the country, my dream was scrapbooking. One day I went to lunch with a friend, and she said, Lisa, you know all about, editing a magazine, you know all about publishing a magazine. If you could be the editor of any magazine, if you could start any magazine, what would it be? My answer was easy. I said scrapbooking. Now, right now, scrapbooking is a household name to every one of you guys. Whether it's a mom, a sister, a wife, a girlfriend, everybody knows about scrapbooking. But when I thought of this idea, which was in 1996, I can promise you nobody really knew what scrapbooking was. There was a couple of scrapbook stores, but everybody was like, what? A scrapbook? And when I said scrapbooking magazine, people were like, what? You'd start a scrapbooking magazine. Well, I went home, and I told my husband about this idea. And I do have to mention this. I love speaking at BYU because I can add a little bit of religion into this. On my birthday, I was in my early, I think I was barely 30. I went to the temple, and while I was there, I was praying about the direction I should take in my life, and a voice just almost as clear as you can hear me said, start a scrapbooking magazine, Lisa. Use your skills, turn the hearts of the children to their fathers and the hearts of their fathers to their children. Start a scrapbooking magazine. And so I went home from that, and I told my friend about this idea, and I said to my husband, who had just graduated from college himself, I said, I need to start a scrapbooking magazine. And he jumped up and down and thought it was a great idea because he knew at that time there were like 55 million pictures taken every day in America. And he knew that everybody had piles and boxes under their beds and in their attics. And on the computer now, there weren't digital photos there that needed something to happen so that they were in an archivally safe space. And he thought it was a great idea. So we immediately, what's the first thing when you think of a good idea? What do you want to do? What do you not want to do? You don't want to quit your job. Well, that too. You don't want to tell anybody because you're like, what if somebody steals my idea? You're kind of guarded. Does anybody ever feel like that? You have a good idea and you're like, if I tell somebody, do you have a good idea right now? You guys have good ideas? It's hard to know who to tell, isn't it? So I told my husband, and I finally thought we need a partner. So I went to the graphic design manager or the whatever of WordPerfect magazine, told him, and he and his wife jumped on board and said, this is an amazing idea. Let's do it together. Now, there's 3 reasons why we were told we would fail. Now, this was in the beginning stages. We still had day jobs. We didn't quit our job. We would do this at night. And Dawn Lamson, who was my partner, and we, along with our spouses, started it, but we went to a magazine publishing conference in California. This is where they tell you all the things you should or shouldn't do with a magazine. And we finally told our idea. We had not told our idea to anybody at this point. And we went and we told an expert about our idea. And he looked at us, he laughed in our faces, and he said, there's 3 reasons why you never will make it. He said, number 1, it takes $1 million to start a magazine. Now, I want you guys to think of Barnes & Noble or somewhere where there's lots of magazines. 95% of those magazines go out of business within the first 3 to 5 years. Okay? Think that through. I mean, it is an amazing, a lot of people want to start magazines and they're like, wow, this sounds really cool. But it's hard to keep it going. It's hard to have a demographic. So 95% of those won't still be there in the next 3 to 5 years. That's kind of sad. Do you guys, has nothing to do with anything, but do you guys know what they do with all those magazines? They used to do with them? They don't send them back to you if they don't sell. They rip off the front cover and they send back the front cover, saying, we didn't sell it, but here you go. That's kind of painful when you're, starting a magazine to get all these covers back. You're like, what? Okay, number 2, it takes a year of marketing research before you start a magazine or any idea. And he looked at us and said, have you done any marketing research? And we said, no. We know that, I love to do it and she loves to do it. And he goes, never going to make it. You need a year of marketing research. And he said, number 3, scrapbooking is a stupid subject matter. Now, I'm quoting, that is the truth. He said, you'll get through 1 issue, but it will never, ever, ever make it. Okay, now if you would have gotten news like that, oh, that wasn't like that. Okay, got it. If you would have gotten news like that, how many of you guys would have continued on? I like you. Look at you. I see a few hands. Well, we went home with our tails between our legs. We were deflated. We were like, what are we doing? We don't think that this is going to make it. But do you know what? I want you guys to know that every one of you have personal revelation that you can have for yourself. And I knew in that temple, on that hill, that day, I had heard a voice, and it said, start a scrapbook magazine. So I looked at Dawn, and I said, you know what? I'm still feeling it, even though all these things tell us we should never do it. We should go for it. And he said, I feel the same way. We got our spouses together, and we all said, we're going to make this work. We're going to go for it. So we did. Now, so we printed off 40,000 of our very first issue. 40,000. That's a lot. Our garage was filled. It was actually our partner's garage, filled to the brim with magazines. 40,000 issues. That's a huge leap of faith. We borrowed $100,000 from our homes. We didn't have $1 million. We had $100,000. And we also sent out a top-notch mailer to the few stores that were around the country. And I'm going to show you kind of the growth of the scrapbooking industry in a minute. But there weren't a lot of them, but we sent out about 100,000 mailers. Now, let me tell you the 3 reasons why we knew we'd succeed. I just told you the 3 reasons why we knew we'd fail. We got to close to a 20% response on most of the mailing lists. What is the norm? Can anybody tell me, when you guys get that mail in the, that kind of that junk mail in your mailbox, what do you guys usually do with it? You check it. What is the norm? I saw a hand back here. That, you know what, it might very well, maybe Kim can tell us better. I've heard 2 to 4%, but I think 0.5% might be kind of, there's so much mail that comes now, so much junk, but I think probably, let's say 0.5% to 4% is the norm. 4% is probably really, really good. 2 to 4%. 20%, I think went out and bought donuts or something. We're like, are you kidding me? So we had 20,000 orders before the first issue even came off. Okay, this was 15 years ago, but that was amazing. That was all the marketing research we needed. Number 2, we had 21 people sign up for ads. Okay, 21 people said, we don't know anything about your magazine, but we are going to sign up, which is pretty much unheard of. We also had 20,000 orders on our first issue. This was our very first issue that came out. One really bad thing that happened is it came out the very same week as election week, and it got caught up in trailers and trucks in Missouri and sat there for weeks and weeks. So we had all these people calling, going, was this a scam? Where is it? And we're like, no, it's in these trailers in Kansas City, Missouri. It was kind of a mess. But besides that, this came out, and we had initially printed 40,000 of them. They just flew off the shelves. Do you guys think we're glad we didn't listen to that expert at this point? What if we would have waited a year like he told us to? Competition would have come and probably beat us to the punch. We were the first full-fledged magazine out there with advertising, with editorial. We were the leaders. Here's some of our issues that followed. So this was our very first issue. That was my person that did my hair there on the cover, and her son. They just kept going, and you can see how they've evolved. Here was our 100th issue, where I was on the cover of it. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about the growth. So this magazine was how many of you have ever seen this magazine before? Gotten the magazine? Okay. It's in its prime, so I want to tell you too about some of the mistakes that I made so you can learn from me. We started the magazine and it just started growing like this. We, within the first year, only used $40,000 of that initial $100,000, and we paid it back. We took second mortgages out on our homes. And I'm a fan that as much as you can borrow the money from yourself, I love it rather than going to a bank. That's just me. I'd rather own myself back money, pay myself back interest, versus go to a bank. So we took second mortgages out on our homes. Now, we bought it and it just started going like this, just growing rapidly. 5 years, some of the things, and I'll talk about some of the things we did right, but when do you want to sell a company? It was just going like this. It was going crazy. When is it time to sell a company? Does anybody have any ideas with that? Looks like you had some. Anybody? Do you want to sell it when it's like this, when it's here, when it's tipping, when it's going back down? Every business has a cycle, peaks and valleys. You're exactly right. You want to get it so it's just about ready to go over the top. It's just about ready to level off, but it still looks like it's just going to boom. We sold our company down here. That was a mistake, but one I have not regretted because we got paid fairly at the time for it, but we didn't know that it was just going to go crazy for the next 8 years, or 10 years, so we sold it too soon. So it's hard to judge it, but you kind of want to do it right when it's right here about ready to go up over the peak, but you don't want to do it here. You want to do it when it's on its way up. Okay, so in our biggest time with the magazine, remember we had 20,000 initial readers. Our readership, and when I made this PowerPoint, was 650,000 people. That's a very large readership for a magazine. The first full-page ad in 1996 we sold it for $2,295. And today, probably a full-page ad is over $6,000. You can see how fast we grew. There were 21 full-page ads in 1996, 81 full-page ads. Our biggest issue was in February 2007. Okay, so sales for CK the very first year were $200,000, which was pretty exciting. And then in 2007, and this was way after we sold it, the company made $35 million off that one little sticky note idea. So you can see we sold it here, then they turned around and sold it here. It's kind of hard, whenever you've thought of the idea, you've done it, you've stayed on with the company, but you know what? You got to live with those choices, and I haven't lost any sleep over it at all. But my advice to you, when you think of that big idea on your sticky note, wait till the exact right time, get some advice on when to sell it, okay? Sales for the industry were $200 million. That's the scrapbook industry in 1997. Sales in 2007 were $2.5 billion. You can see how quickly this industry grew. And if we would have waited like the expert told us to, it would have been too late. First magazine was 68 pages. Our biggest issue was 250 pages. How do you guys know when you see a magazine, how do you know when they're larger? What determines the size of a magazine? This is just kind of a fun little QA for you guys. Good. Advertising. We call it the plot value. If there's a lot of ads, the magazine's going to be thicker. And usually the ratio is about 55-45, 55 editorial, 45 ads. And we call it the plot value. We like to see how how loud it plops. If it's a loud plop, that means there's lots of ads. That's just kind of an insider term. So the plop value means how many ads you have in that. That determines the size of your magazine. Okay, now I want you to look at this though too. Every business has this going on. You have it going up, you have it going down, you have it going up. The first magazine was 68 pages in February 2008, 250 pages. Look what happened 2 years ago, or 2 years later. I guess that was almost 4 years ago. It was down to 132 pages. And I'm not involved with the magazine anymore, but I think it's probably around 100 pages every month. You can see the economy takes place. This is a hobby. It was affected, but it's still going strong. There were 20 scrapbook stores in 1996. There were over 2,000 in 2007. That's how fast this industry grew. Okay, so the magazine was going strong. It was going out once a month, doing well. Who knows what ancillary products means? Anybody know what the word ancillary means? You're going to learn a new word here. This could be invaluable to you. Everybody write it down. ANCILLARY. If you play words with friends, use it. You'll get 75 points off it, okay? Ancillary product means a product that doesn't affect your core business. Our core business was the magazine, but that still makes it so that you can make money while not affecting that core business, and it still goes along with your core business. Let me give you an example. We started idea books. So we would have a yearly idea book, the 2004 idea book, 2005, 2006. These were all of the different scrapbook pages that were submitted to us from readers that we couldn't fit in the pages of the magazine that were still great. We put in these idea books. This first one, we printed 100,000 of these. We sold them for $14.95. You can do the math on that. They sold out really quick. It was a little cash cow that we had that still went along with our core, but it didn't harm our magazine sales. So it's an extra product that you can think of. Help me think of another idea. Let's see. I'm trying to think of another product that I can liken it to. I'm sure other magazines like Reader's Digest always says you can buy this or you can buy that, or other magazines. I'm trying to think of, anyway, we'll all think of some in a minute, but this is ancillary products. We did the Hall of Fame book. We did the Wedding Memories book. Then we came out with books. Those were just special issues. That was the very first book that I wrote. I continued writing more books. This was my very latest, 50 Moments. We also did something called Creating Keepsakes Universities. This is where people could receive their degree in 3 days. Doesn't that sound exciting? It was a big retreat for women and a few men, brave men, and we had about 600 participants. I can't remember what they paid. I think about $300 a person. And these are still going on. But we would have core classes, elective classes, have a pep rally, have a commencement service. It was all fun and games while they earned their degree. This was special events is a great way to have an ancillary product that still is in line with your mission statement, your core product. We did fonts that were just for scrapbooking. It went on and on. I want to just tell you a few secrets of success that I found along the way. One, we wrote a really strong mission statement. We took weeks writing a mission statement. A mission statement makes it so you can stick with your core product. We didn't say we're paper and we're scissors and we're stickers. We said we are the information givers for scrapbooking. We send information and teach how to scrapbook, and we remained with the magazine true to that. Number two, we stayed lean. It's really easy in the beginning stages to go, ooh, I want to hire you, and I want to hire you, and I want to hire you, and I want to pay everybody, give everybody stock. But what happens when you sell it a few years later if you've given all your stock away? It's hard. So we always tried to stay lean. We outsourced as much as we could. I think that's one of my points. And we didn't give stock away. We said, we're going to pay you a fair salary. We decided to keep the stock to the principal owners, and that worked out well for us. We also hired a CEO named Mark Seastrand, who I was the editor for the magazine. I was traveled a lot because I went and I did QVC, which I'll talk about in a minute. I did appearances. I spoke at scrapbook seminars. It was too hard to run the magazine. My partner was the design expert. We hired somebody we trusted. So often we try to remain control, have control of everything that we do, but it was really smart to go, we trust you, please run our company, we'll still have meetings with you, but it was a great move on our part. We always put family first. One thing I want to tell particularly you gals in here, I always worked from home. And I loved it. I have an open door policy with my children. And I always tell them nothing's more important than when you walk in, whether it's on a phone call, whether I'm in the middle of a paper, whatever it is, I put it down because guess who I'm working for? My kids. And so I want them to be number one. You can work at home. I've worked at home for years and years and years and years. And I'll tell you how I did that in a minute. But I always put family first. We also went for the free PR. Did you guys know that here in the state of Utah, all the newspapers, all the television, the news, the radio stations, the TV, early morning news, Good Things Utah, the Studio 5, they're all looking for free, for PR. They're not PR, but they're all looking for stories. This is free PR that you can capitalize on. Let me tell you some of the things that we did. Some of the magazines. Okay, have you guys ever seen this magazine? BYU, it's a pretty awesome university. They did a story called Sailing on the Trade Wind, where they told my story. That was really great PR throughout America. Utah Valley Magazine did a story, a conversation with the Creating Keepsakes founder, Lisa Burnson. I was on the cover and did a story on Business Q, and there I am inside with my scrapbooking room. Okay, I have to tell you guys something funny. The People magazine editor came and interviewed me in my home, and she said, you're going to be in, I can't tell you what issue you're going to be in, so I prayed for a good cover. I'm like, please let it be a good cover that people want to buy. When I heard that the Osborne family was on the cover, I was like, are you kidding me? And then I realized my prayer was answered. They're such a weird, wacky family that probably everybody was picking it up because I wanted to read all about the laugh and tears of the Osborne family. So I was in there, and there I am. It was called Save Haven. Now, I'll tell you about this article in a minute, but I'm telling you, if you can ever be in People magazine, they're just like any other magazine. They're looking for the story. They want a story of, it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm just a little, Utah Mormon mom who thought of an idea, a big idea, in my basement. Something I put on a sticky note in my brain. Guess what? They don't care where you are. Sometimes you look at these stories on in People magazine or on big news shows or big talk shows, and you're like, how did they get on that? Well, it works because I did the PR route. I did, started with small with local, and then it went big. Local stations, national stations. Here's one that I was on several times, the Today Show. I really enjoyed working with this newscaster. His name's David Bloom, and he actually passed away in Iraq a few years ago of a blood clot in his lung. But just a really amazing guy. I was on the Today Show several times with him. Oprah. Okay, so from that, she read about my story in People magazine, she and her main editor. And this is a really funny story, and it just has to be told because the men in here will chuckle and the women in here will chuckle. But how many of you have been to Lake Powell? A few people. Okay, Lake Powell is a man's just heaven on earth. And women like it too, but a man really loves it. My husband that year had bought into a timeshare on a boat. This was several years ago, and it was our first year at Lake Powell. We've been planning for months and months, had two families that didn't even know each other, going to Lake Powell. We get down, it's our first day on the lake, and my cell phone rings, and I didn't even think I had cell phone coverage, and I get on, and they said, hello, this is the Oprah Winfrey Show. This is Oprah's editor, and Lisa, you have been chosen next week to appear live on our show as in a segment called, what was it called now? Ordinary People with an Extraordinary Idea. And she said, will you be available next week? And I'm like looking around, I'm at Lake Powell on a houseboat, looking at my husband thinking, how do I explain this? I said, can I talk to my husband for a minute? I got off the phone and I said, that was Oprah. And she wants me to be on her show next week, and I have to be home Monday morning. This was Friday. Have to be home. Now, Lake Powell's hours and hours from here. It's a big process, And he looked at me and he's like, well, of course you're going to choose to stay at Lake Powell, right? And I'm like, what would you guys have chosen? I said, you know what, honey, if it was anybody else but Oprah, I probably would stay. But I'm like, get me in the car, I got to go home. And so then here was the really unfortunate thing. The next day, the editor her producer called me again and said, you know what? You know that your whole entire family has to be home, not just you, right? Because they were coming to my house. here in Utah to do the story. And I looked at my husband going, okay. So I said, you know what? They went the whole family home. They went to interview him. And he's like, you know what? My husband was great. He said, if it's important to you, it's important to me. Let's go home. So Sunday night, we got in the car, drove home. Monday morning, they came at 7 in the morning. We did the interview. My husband got back in the car, drove back with all the kids. I flew on to the Oprah show. So we all played together in the sandbox, and it was great. And this right here, this experience on Oprah was really the highlight of my career. She's as nice in person as she appears to be on the show. And it was a great PR move because people heard about the magazine. They wanted to know about it. They went onto the website. This is tangible for each of you guys. Maybe not right now because Oprah's no longer on the air, is she? I think she just went off, right? Maybe she has something else brewing. But honestly, if you would have told me in your shoes that I would be on the Oprah Winfrey Show, that I would be in People Magazine, that I would do some of the things I've done, I wouldn't have thought it's possible because I'm like you and ordinary people with an extraordinary idea, but it can be done. It's because I believed in my inner self. I thought of that idea on a sticky note. I implanted it in my brain. I knew I could do it. I knew that what I thought, if it was positive thoughts, I could do anything. I promise you guys, you can move mountains with the positive by thinking positive thoughts. I have to mention this too. QVC. Anybody know what QVC is? It's that probably I shouldn't say this while I'm getting taped, but it's that obnoxious channel that probably you skip over all the time. It's 24 hours a day where they sell different things on TV to you. Home Shopping Network. Okay. QVC stands for Quality, Value, Convenience. 12 years ago, I guess 14 years ago, they came to me and said, we want to start a scrapbooking show. I said, I'll try it. It went crazy. I flew out to Philadelphia once a month and appeared on QVC for hours at a time. I want to just tell you the pressure of QVC. They want, they want a minimum of $6,000 a minute sold on QVC. Now you watch QVC and think that person has to sell $6,000 a minute in prime time. And a lot of the items that I sold $10,000 a minute. So it was successful, but others were like $2,000 a minute. Tons and tons of pressure. But I want to tell you, this was great PR too. People watched it throughout the country, and they were like, wow, I've seen you on QVC. They would tape the show. They wanted to learn how to scrapbook. This is the first book that I sold on QVC, and within a 24-hour period, I sold 80,000 of them. Yeah, it was it was amazing. I was on like 8 times during the day, plus with hour-long shows. This was the last book that I sold on QVC, and it did really, really well too. I think I got to skip over some of this, but I want to just talk about the secrets of having a successful career and being a successful mother. Because I do have to tell you, I love the quote that there is no success can compensate for failure in the home. I truly believe that. My greatest success, whether it was being on Oprah, People Magazine, some of the things that have happened, people I've met, I have found no greater joy than that being in my home. But with that said, I am a huge advocate for every single woman, along with a man, having that sticky note idea and knowing what you want to go for and always having it having it as a backup plan. You have no idea of circumstances where you might work full-time. You might need that big idea sometime in your life. Have a plan now. I did, and I'm thankful I did that. And I want to just talk about how I've been able to be a successful mother. Did I mention my son's getting home in 24 hours? I'm doing it. No, what is it? 7 days, 23 hours. There, I got it right. Okay, I'm so excited. Okay. 1, set your limits. I'm thinking of family because set your limits. When you start a business, you can be in your office 24/7. And for anybody, Kim works from home, isn't it true? You kind of really, in fact, she was talking to me on the way up here about, this is your professor here who's in charge of this class, but you're trying to juggle it all, aren't you? You have to set your limits. You have to say, I'm going to be in the office from 8 to 4 today. I'm not going to go back in. And you also have to say, at dinner time, I'm not going to talk about the business. I'm going to talk about family matters because it could consume you when you start your own business. Number 2, include your spouse in all the decisions you make. My husband and I have been a team with this. He has been there through thick and thin. He worked in the business for 5 years, took an early retirement about 10 years ago. But he has stayed at home. He's been a Mr. Mom. He's been an amazing support for me. 2 years ago, I retired from it, and now I get to stay home, and I absolutely love it. I feel really fulfilled because I was able to have a career, have a family. Now I get to stay home, and as I say, just lead my little chickens along. I love it. But that's really important. If you're off and you're isolated in your own little world, not including your spouse, that's hard. 3, put your family first. I talked about that a minute ago. I love that quote. Number 4, work from home as much as you can. I promise you, particularly you ladies, you can work from home. Really, if you go in and interview and you go and work for a year maybe at the office and then they prove yourself invaluable, say, look, I think I've worked out a way I can work at home. With my first job, WordPerfect Magazine, I would get up at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, work for a few hours before the kids got up. Then I would be all mom when they were there. Then I'd put them down for a nap, work for a few hours. I made it work. You can work at home. You can make it work. You just have to be really structured and really organized. But I love working at home. Number 5, get help in your home if you need to. I know for me, we did have a nanny for many years. She would do things that I wished I could do, like laundry. I'm joking. Laundry's not my favorite thing, but she would help it along, and it's important to know where your limits are. You can't do everything, and if you can get help in your home, do. That helped me out a lot. Number 6, rely on divine intervention. Talked about how all of us have personal revelation. Depend on that. I can promise you more than any expert, that is the expert who knows all, and that is there waiting anytime you have a question to ask, and I have loved that that's been included. I don't have time to go over all these things, but I just want to close with honesty is the only policy. There in business is a lot of gray areas, and I'm sure that other people that come and talk will talk about that. But for me, in my house, in my business, it was black and it was white, and it always paid off. I always could look at people squarely in the face and say, you know what, I always was honest, and I always told the truth. And that is a good feeling in owning a business. Also, my favorite quote is, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. That is a famous church quote. I absolutely love it. In business, you know what, it's nice to be important, and everybody wants that, but I can guarantee you if you're nice, that's where success will come. Also, this is just a silly little quote, but it says scrapbooking only comes after housework in the dictionary. So, in other words, you need to scrapbook before you do housework. Anyway, happy memories. I've enjoyed talking to you. Sorry, this was kind of a whirlwind. But before I answer some questions, I hope, and I know there's some goodies in the back, but I hope every single person, before you go, I'm going to literally give you 30 seconds right now to write down an idea. It can be anything, it can change, but I want you to go home on that little sticky note, and I want you to put it somewhere where you can refer back to it. I want you to remember me 20 years ago, 25 years ago, in a classroom probably similar to this one, thinking of an idea and having the faith that I could do it. All of you have that within you, every one of you, and I feel a lot of great energy in here, and I love entrepreneurship. And I hope you guys spread the word that this is a great class, because you guys are in for quite a treat with all the other speakers. Thank you. And any questions? Yes?
My question is for the scrapbooking.
Mm-hmm.
Is there like an online magazine we can purchase?
She's asking if there's any online magazines to purchase. You know what? There is a huge amount of ideas out there. I don't think there's an online magazine. Creating Keepsakes magazine is still going. A lot of them have gone out of business, but really there are tons and tons of online places that you can go for help. I would just Google scrapbooking ideas, guarantee, or scrapbooking articles. Creating Keepsakes has a whole online area that you can go to too. Just go to creatingkeepsakes.com, and they have a big section of their magazine online. Good question. Anything else? Any of you men brave enough to ask a question? How many of you want to start your own business? Looks like quite a few. That's awesome. Yes, Kim?
I'm just curious about when you were very first doing scrapbooking.
Uh-huh.
Before there was a lot of stores.
Yes.
Where did you get your papers and your resources and your ideas? I mean,
Do you know, before there was all of these stores, you know what I used to do, and it's horrible? I would get wallpaper, old wallpaper samples, and I'd cut them out. I used all the things you're not supposed to use in them. So I started a magazine a scrapbook when I was 8 years old, and to this day I still have it. It's a big red scrapbook. Oprah showed it on her show, and it really was a piece of me and who I was, and I'd write all my hopes, my dreams, my accomplishments, my failures. But you know what? It's falling apart literally because I used the wrong kind of products. So it was bad, and I was thankful when Pebbles in My Pocket came to town, and keeping memories alive in some of these where I could go and actually buy products that were safe for my scrapbooks. So it's come a long way, and it's just a really fun, creative process. Scrapbooking is amazing, and it's a memory that your family's going to keep forever. So, yes.
After you sold the business, how involved were you in the operations?
That is a great idea, a great question. After I sold the business, how involved? When I sold the business, I said, I will still do QVC, I'll still do television appearances, but I don't want to be day-to-day meetings, I don't want to manage anybody, I don't want to meet with lawyers, sorry, or I don't want to do any of that day-to-day. I want to take care of my family and work on what I need to. So I set the boundaries big time when they sold it. I said, I'll continue to work, but I'm not gonna keep, I was still involved, and I still was looked at as the figurehead, as the leader. Now, 2 years ago, I completely got out of it. They still own my website, and that is one mistake that I made. I wish I would have bought my own URL, but we bought it as a company, and so the people that own it now still own that, and they still want me to write on my blog, and because it gets people to, and they've been great to work with, so it's worked out okay. But I wish I would have been smart enough to pay the $50 to buy my own URL, or how much it is, and I wouldn't have had that today. But I did really set my boundaries with how much I wanted to be involved.